Hello, welcome. I'm Commissar Marek, long-time CZ3 player and map creator, and today I'll be showing you how to design a proper housing block in CZ3. The goal is to amend some of the misconceptions that are floating around the community about the 9x9 system being the most efficient one, and I will explain why it is not the case and how you could design a block that would be efficient in terms of space and the amount of people you can fit per single set of services. For those of you who do not know what 9x9 block means, this is the design that has been floating around the community, and it emphasizes the efficiency of this fountain over the amount of space you are using for the middle and the amount of housing you can reasonably fit in a block. In this case, you would be adding all your services on the outskirts here when you add food, temples and other things, but you are severely limiting yourself in terms of how many people you can actually fit in here, because the fountain is actually one of your least concerns in terms of labor efficiency. Also, another thing to keep in mind is, look at all this dead space that remains in the middle, which is gonna be used for gardens or statues, but it's not really needed for this population density. On the other hand, this is how your most efficient block layout would actually look like. It uses only 2 fountains, but it manages to squeeze in so much more labor. And another key element to this is that your walkers from a single set of services, like your theater or school or temples, will actually be able to frequent covering every single house with their service without it deteriorating down or the walker turning around. So this is the extent the walkers will be reasonably expected to cover, while having the 9x9 block, which would be something like this, would actually waste your potential in terms of space as well as walker coverage. You can also see that we keep only 2 tiles of space in the middle, and while it might upset your OCD a little bit, it's actually the efficient way of doing things. You don't really need as much desirability as the 9x9 block leaves in the middle, and you can always go with Plaza, which is the cheapest and most efficient way of getting desirability to your blocks. In the middle, you can just easily go with statues or gardens to buff the desirability higher if you go for higher evolutions like Grand Insulae. Now I will show you how to place your service buildings in an efficient manner. First thing to consider is you will also want to place an extra row of housing on one of the sides of the block. In this case I chose this side, and if you had fertile land over here, you would want this side for your services and the granary and markets. That is a conscious decision where you place your markets. But first let's start with the engineer and prefect. Since this is a central map, we need both of these services. And let's make a tile of road right there. You'll want a granary and then road coming out of the granary. If you are using Augustus, you can use the road block, cut this off, and this layout will allow you to have the prefect and engineer spawn on the road in the loop while not having any options to divert from it, while at the same time the granary has access to the road here, so it will have access to the global labor pool if you are using that, and at the same time it will actually be very close to the actual block. Now if you had farms inputting food in this granary, you could actually use markets right here, and the way you want to do this is place your markets as close to the granary as possible. You can see I've done it right here, so the markets are as close as possible in order to make sure the market ladies spend as little time as possible on the actual road to get food and come back, so we can continuously distribute food to the entire block as well as other goods when we inevitably get those. So you would want to reserve this closest space to the granary for the markets. Usually for this kind of block, it's enough to have 2 or maximum 3 markets, and everything should work very well if you have enough input resources. Another thing to note with a granary like this, you actually don't need to place extra services like prefect and engineer back here, because prefect and engineer actually have a range of 2 tiles from the road, which means it gets covered from the loop itself, so the granary is actually safe. In this case, we would also want to build some temples, so I would usually build them over here, especially if we are using this as our first starting block. We don't have any other people in the city. You want your small temples, so just build them in your regular block, that's fine. Later on you would add a theater and a school to make people be able to evolve to casa once you get them food, and there is plenty of space for other things. Usually you will even have a couple of tiles left if you evolve them all the way to Grand Insulae. Now, another thing to note is if you add resources like pottery and whatnot, you actually will have pretty good option to do it through here. Warehouses in Augustus actually don't need fire or collapsing protection from engineers or prefects, so you can just have it like this. It has road access. It can fetch pottery, 16 units is usually enough for a block to retain enough stocks and not fetch overly too much, and then the markets will also have very quick way to grab it. So this would be your basic block design. Now, there is something to note about this not being as interesting as making something more intricate, and that's correct if you go for looks more than efficiency. And also in the campaign you actually are not forced to use these sorts of designs too much, because you can actually get away with using even suboptimal designs and get by very well. The point is, CZ3 actually has a huge amount of custom maps, so if you truly want to master and beat the game, you should invest your time into grabbing some of these custom maps and pitting yourself against them. And in these maps, space is usually a big issue, so blocks like this suddenly become invaluable assets once you master their placement. It also helps as a new player, so that you can design efficient cities, understand how things work, and then you can actually diverge from the standardized block designs. One last thing, this block actually is quite long, even though it's not as thick. It's actually quite long. So if there is a case in which you would not be having as long of a space of open ground as we have right here, we could actually design another block design that's a little bit wider, but it is efficient as this. And I can actually show you right now. Okay, you can see right now that we could also design a block like this in a sort of T shape that would allow us to squeeze a block in a tight spot where we wouldn't have this and this area open because of some obstructions like cliffs or water, so we can fit the block more wider like this. It retains similar efficiency, especially if we add extra houses on the sides, and it would mean that we can actually fit the same amount of people as here, but we'll fit it in here. Also, fountain coverage is gonna be stellar even with this one, especially once they merge. Now, you might have seen me place my houses differently in my playthroughs of custom maps, so I'm gonna show you what to do in Augustus. If you have the option to have all houses merge, what you want to do with your blocks starting out is place your houses with 2x2 grid in mind, so that they all merge like this. And then once people come in and merge into 2x2s, you will actually add the rest of the houses in. It reduces the amount of immigration you get initially, because people actually only move in one immigrant per plot. So you will get slower start for your city, but it will make sure that you have all your houses into 2x2s, which is incredibly useful. So you place that, and then once people move in, you just fill in the gaps with more houses. Now, in terms of the actual length of these, I counted by the amount of denarii that's usually designed. So if I want to build a block that would be this standardized design, I would just start drawing a straight line, and once it reaches 96 denarii, which is 4 denarii per tile, so in this case it's 24 tiles of road. But I usually just look at the price, 96 denarii, plop it down. You would go a little bit to the side. Let me just quickly remove this template. And then we would grab some housing and start fitting it in. And then you can actually connect it, and you have the same road layout as that. So 96. Then you make sure you can fit 3 2x2 houses on these sides, and then you can fill the rest in, make it look like this. Okay, anyways, I hope that this video has been at least a little bit useful to all the people out there who had some misconceptions about block designs and what's the most efficient way to design your cities and blocks. I hope that you will find that useful, and if you have more questions, feel free to comment below or follow the channel for more content, as well as join the Discord or my Twitch. All of these links are going to be provided in the description of the video.